I always thought delivering pizzas was the safest kind of late-night job you could have. You drive around, listen to your music, drop off a hot box of food, and sometimes pocket a few extra bucks in tips. Nothing heroic, nothing dangerous. For 2 years, it was exactly that for me. Boring, predictable, a job I could do half asleep. Until one night, something happened that made me quit delivering for good. Back then, I worked at a Pizza Hut in Glenage, a sleepy town tucked between long stretches of empty farmland and a half-dead industrial district that most people avoided after sunset. My shifts were usually evenings and late nights. I liked the quiet, and honestly, the tips were better when people felt guilty ordering at 11 p.m. That night had started off like any other. It was a Thursday and the forecast called for light rain. The dinner rush had died by 9, and the only people still working were me, the manager Tina, and the cook Eric, who was half asleep leaning against the counter. I was leaning over my phone behind the register, half watching the clock creep toward closing time when the little ding of a new order lit up the screen. "Another one?" I groaned. Tina glanced over. "Where's it going?" I pulled the ticket. 72 Lambert Street. I hesitated. Lambert Street was right on the edge of town, just past the abandoned warehouses that sat like dark skeletons on the horizon. Tina noticed my face. "You good?" "It's not that far." "Yeah," I said, forcing a shrug. "Just weird address." "Whatever." Eric made a half-hearted attempt at a ghost noise. "Ooh, spooky Lambert Street," he joked. "Watch out for the bogeyman." I rolled my eyes, grabbed the pizza, a large pepperoni, and headed out into the drizzly night. The drive there was eerily quiet. Past Main Street, the houses got smaller and farther apart. Street lights flickered or didn't work at all. My wipers squeaked across the windshield, pushing away the misty drizzle. I told myself it was just another delivery, same as always. When I turned onto Lambert, it hit me how deserted it felt. The road was cracked. The houses sagged inward like tired old men, and here and there abandoned lots sat overgrown and forgotten. I found 702 easily enough, a small weather-beaten house tucked between two empty lots. There was no car in the driveway, no lights on inside, just a porch light struggling to stay alive, buzzing faintly like a dying fly. I parked at the curb and grabbed the pizza. As I opened the door, I spotted someone standing just at the edge of the driveway. At first, I thought it was a trick of the rain or the headlights. But no, it was a man, tall and thin, wearing a faded gray hoodie and ripped jeans. He wasn't moving, just standing there watching me. I felt the hair on my arms prickle. Hey there," I called, forcing my voice to sound casual. "Got your pizza?" No response. He just stared, a weird half-smile twitching on his lips. I stepped carefully onto the driveway, feeling the crunch of gravel under my sneakers. "It's $23.75, I said, holding out the pizza. Slowly, the man reached into his pocket and pulled out a handful of coins. Nickels, dimes, a couple of quarters. He started counting them out. 1, 2, 3. His hand trembling slightly with each coin. The drizzle turned to rain, cold and sharp against my skin. I glanced back at my car. I was only about 20 feet away, but it felt farther with each heartbeat. Finally, he pressed the damp coins into my hand. His fingers brushed mine, ice cold, like he'd been standing in a freezer. I tried not to flinch. "Thanks, man. Have a good night," I muttered, eager to bolt. As I turned to go, he spoke softly, almost thoughtfully. "You drive fast," he said. "Too fast." "It's not safe," I froze. Something about the way he said it, like a teacher scolding a misbehaving child, made my stomach knot up. I forced a chuckle. "Yeah, guess I get a little impatient sometimes," I said, inching backward. His smile widened just a little, stretching his face unnaturally. "You shouldn't," he said. That was enough for me. I turned, speed-walked back to my car, and slammed the door shut. As I pulled away, I peeked in the rearview mirror. He was still standing there, rain dripping from his hood, holding the pizza like he didn't even care about it, still staring. I drove faster, heart hammering against my ribs. By the time I hit Main Street again, I told myself it was over. Creepy guy, sure, but maybe just drunk or high or just weird. It happens. Working deliveries, you see all kinds. But as I turned onto Pine Avenue, something caught my eye in the mirror. A figure far behind me, walking along the side of the road. The hoodie, the ripped jeans, the same slow, deliberate walk. It was him. My foot pressed harder on the gas pedal. No way, I thought. There's no way he's following me, not on foot, not this far. I kept driving, refusing to look again, pretending it was nothing. By the time I reached the Pizza Hut, the parking lot was empty. The lights inside were off. Tina and Eric must have closed up and left. I pulled into the spot nearest the door, killed the engine, and just sat there for a second, breathing. Then my phone buzzed. I jumped so hard I almost dropped it. It was a text from an unknown number. Drive safe. My mouth went dry. Slowly I looked up toward the road. And there he was, standing across the street under the broken streetlight, his face barely visible, but the smile was unmistakable. Something inside me snapped. I jammed the keys into the ignition, reversed out of the lot so fast the tires squealed, and tore down the street toward home. I didn't sleep that night. I barely even blinked. Every noise outside my apartment, every creak, every gust of wind made my pulse race. I kept checking my phone. No more texts. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw that smile, that tilting head, the way he stood there like he was waiting. The next morning, I called Tina and quit. No notice, no explanation. I just couldn't risk going back. Not after what I'd seen, not after what I felt. Some nights, even now, I still wonder what would have happened if I'd stayed even a minute longer, or if I'd gotten out of the car, or if somewhere out there in the rain he's still waiting for me to come back. I never thought delivering pizzas could actually scare me out of a job. It was supposed to be easy money. Drive around, hand over some food, maybe get a decent tip if people were feeling generous. Boring? Yeah, most nights. Stressful sometimes when it got busy, but scary? Never. At least not until the last Friday night I ever worked at Pizza Hut. I guess to really understand, you have to know a little about me. My name's Jason Reed, 21 years old, living in the small town of Maple Hollow. Population maybe 12,000 on a good day. I was taking a break from college, trying to figure out what I actually wanted to do with my life. Pizza delivery wasn't the dream, but it paid enough for gas, rent, and my obsession with upgrading my PC. The Pizza Hut where I worked was on Lincoln Street, not far from the edge of town. Most of our deliveries were to the regular neighborhoods, little cookie-cutter houses with porch lights and barking dogs. I pretty much knew the town by heart after 6 months. Every apartment complex, every trailer park, every weird old farmstead that still took delivery. But that night was different from the start. It was the Friday shift, the busiest night of the week. We'd gotten slammed with orders back to back, and the whole kitchen was a mess of shouting and clattering pans. I was sweaty, tired, and just counting the minutes until I could clock out. Around 10:45 p.m., my manager Ben, good guy, kinda lazy but fair, called me over. "Hey Jason," he said, holding out a receipt in a single box. "Last one of the night. You take this, you're free to go." Sweet, I thought, grabbing the pizza. I glanced at the address, 137 Milner Way. "Never heard of it," I muttered. "Where the hell is Milner Way?" Ben shrugged. "Some new development, I think, out by the old industrial park." "GPS should get you there." I frowned. That part of town was basically dead. Half the factories had shut down years ago, and the place was mostly empty lots and broken windows now. But whatever. I wanted to get it over with. I punched the address into my phone. It popped up right away. A small apartment building tucked at the end of a street I'd never driven down before. The drive started normal enough. The roads were mostly empty, just a few headlights passing by now and then. The further out I got, the worse the streets looked. Potholes, cracked sidewalks, trash blowing across the asphalt. It was like driving into a forgotten part of town. Eventually, I turned onto Milner Way. It was a dead-end street lined with busted-up warehouses and one sad-looking apartment building. It looked wrong immediately, like it didn't belong here anymore, like even the dust had moved on. The building was squat and square, maybe 3 stories tall, paint peeling off in patches, every window dark. There wasn't a single car in the parking lot. I pulled up, left the engine running, and stared at the building for a second. Checked the address on the receipt again, 137 Milner Way. Checked the building number, 137. Of course, I muttered. Of course it's the creepy one. I grabbed the pizza, climbed out of the car, and walked toward the front door. The grass was knee-high and brittle underfoot. The mailbox was hanging by one hinge. Then I noticed the note taped right to the door. Delivered at basement entrance. Use side stairs. The handwriting was sloppy, but the tape looked fresh. I hesitated. This wasn't normal. We weren't even supposed to go inside private areas. Lobby deliveries at most. Anything else was against policy, but it was late. I was tired. I didn't want to drive all the way back and argue about it. Just leave it at the basement door, Jason, I told myself. Drop and go. I found the side stairs easily enough, a narrow concrete stairwell dipping down to a rusty metal door. No light over it, no doorbell. For a second I thought about just leaving the pizza at the top of the stairs and bouncing. But something gnawed at the back of my mind. The kind of feeling you get when you realize the party's over and you're the last one left behind. I steeled myself and walked down. The door was unlocked. It creaked loudly when I pushed it open. Inside, a long, grim hallway stretched out in front of me. Bare concrete walls, dusty floor, a faint smell of mildew hanging in the air. There was one flickering bulb at the far end, barely lighting the way. I swallowed. "Hello?" I called. No answer. "Pizza Hut delivery," I said louder. Still nothing. My voice bounced weirdly off the walls like the place swallowed it. I thought about just leaving the pizza on the floor and running. But something, maybe stupid pride, maybe just exhaustion, pushed me to take a few steps inside. There were doors lining the hallway, all closed except one at the very end. It was cracked open and a soft yellow light spilled out. I walked toward it slowly, my sneakers making faint squeaking sounds against the concrete. As I got closer, I heard something. Low murmuring voices, but not talking like normal, almost chanting. Whispers overlapping. I stopped. Goosebumps prickled my arms. "Pizza's here," I said, half hoping no one would hear me. The whispering stopped. Dead silence. I froze, feeling every hair on my body stand on end. Then slowly the door at the end swung open wider. Inside, I saw them. A group of maybe 6 or 7 people sitting in a circle on the floor. Their backs were to me, hunched over, shoulders twitching like they were cold. "Hey," I called, voice cracking. "Got your pizza?" One by one they turned their heads. Not standing, not moving their bodies, just twisting their necks like broken dolls. Their faces were wrong. Skin pale, almost translucent under the yellow light. Eyes wide, staring, glassy. Mouths slightly open, cracked lips. None of them blinked. None of them said a word. My heart hammered against my ribs so hard it hurt. Instinct screamed at me to run. Then one of them, a man with stringy hair and sunken cheeks, stood up. His body moved stiffly, joints popping audibly in the quiet. The others followed, rising in perfect, jerky unison. They didn't break eye contact. They didn't smile. They just started walking toward me. Slow, deliberate. I stumbled backward, pizza box wobbling in my arms. "Here!" I shouted, shoving the box toward them. They didn't stop. They didn't even look at the pizza. Panic exploded in my chest. I dropped the box and turned, sprinting down the hallway. My footsteps echoed wildly. Behind me I heard them, the scrape of feet, the soft patter of pursuit. I hit the stairs at full speed, nearly slipping on the cracked concrete. The light at the top seemed so far away I didn't dare look back. I didn't want to know how close they were. I burst through the door into the night air, lungs heaving, heart racing. The building loomed behind me, dark and silent once more. I didn't stop to think. I sprinted to my car, yanked the door open, jumped inside. My hands fumbled with the keys, dropping them once before jamming them into the ignition. The engine roared to life. I peeled out of the lot so fast I heard the tires squeal. I didn't look back. I didn't breathe easy until I was halfway across town, surrounded by streetlights and people and noise again. When I finally pulled into my driveway, my whole body was shaking. I sat there in the car for almost half an hour, gripping the steering wheel, trying to convince myself it was some elaborate prank. Some junkies, some weird cult, something explainable. But the faces stayed burned into my mind. The dead, glassy eyes, the cracked lips, the way they moved. The next morning I called Ben, told him I was quitting. He asked why, sounding genuinely surprised. I didn't tell him. How could I? Who would believe me? I don't know what was waiting in that basement. I don't know what would have happened if they'd caught me, and honestly, I don't want to know. All I know is I'll never deliver pizzas again, especially not at night, especially not to places where even the ghosts have packed up and left. I never really thought much about the job. Pizza delivery was supposed to be easy money, a way to pay rent and keep my beat-up Honda alive another year. People order, you show up, hand over the box, maybe joke about the weather, and leave with a few extra dollars in your pocket. That's it. But that night, the night of October 14th, it changed everything I thought I knew about routine jobs and harmless neighborhoods. It was the night I learned that some houses aren't meant to be visited. Some orders shouldn't be delivered, and some voices don't belong to the living. The last order of the night. It was a Wednesday close to 11:30 p.m., half an hour before closing. The Pizza Hut dining area was already dark, just the humming of the soda machine and the buzzing of a fluorescent light above the register keeping me company. Tina, our night manager, was buried in paperwork in the back office, and Eric, the cook, was washing trays, humming some off-key song to himself. I'd been leaning against the counter, scrolling my phone when the order came in. The tablet dinged, and my eyes rolled before I even read it. We were 15 minutes away from shutting everything down. Who the hell orders that late on a weeknight? Still, I tapped the screen, and there it was. One large meat lovers, extra cheese. Address: 14 Brookstone Lane. Brookstone wasn't far. Maybe a 5-minute drive. But my stomach tightened as I stared at the address. I'd delivered up and down Brookstone dozens of times, but I didn't remember a number 14. The street started at 20, neat rows of identical houses with trimmed hedges and SUVs parked in every driveway. Still, I shrugged. Sometimes GPS throws in weird numbers, or maybe it was an old house tucked between lots. I told myself it didn't matter. Drop the box, take the cash, go home. The oven dinged. Eric slid the pizza across the counter, the smell of grease and pepperoni rising with the steam. "Last one, huh?" he said, yawning. "Yeah," I muttered, stuffing napkins and packets of crushed red pepper into the bag. Tina popped her head out of the office. "Don't forget to clock out when you get back, and lock the side door. Somebody jimmied it last week." I nodded, grabbing the insulated bag. My Honda coughed to life outside, headlights slicing the quiet parking lot. I told myself it was just another delivery, nothing special. I had no idea. Brookstone Lane. The town fell away quickly as I drove. Main Street's neon signs faded into the darkness, and the air turned colder, damp. My wipers squeaked across the windshield, brushing away a fine mist that had begun to fall. Brookstone Lane appeared like a tunnel, lined with maples that arched overhead. The houses started at number 40, big, tidy 2 stories with shutters and glowing porch lights. I counted down as I drove: 36, 32, 28. My chest tightened. 24, 20. That should have been the start of the block. But there it was, a narrow gravel drive cutting into the shadows and a crooked mailbox with faded black numbers. 14. I slowed, squinting. The house squatted at the end of the lane like it had grown out of the weeds. Smaller than its neighbors, clapboard siding warped and rotted, shutters hanging loose. No car in the driveway, no decorations. Just a faint yellow glow in one window, the rest swallowed by darkness. I pulled up at the curb, fingers tightening on the steering wheel. Something about the place felt wrong. The air seemed thicker, heavier, as if the house itself exhaled unease. "Just a delivery," I muttered. "Just drop it and leave." Grabbing the pizza, I stepped into the drizzle. Gravel crunched under my sneakers as I walked up the path. The door I knocked once. Nothing. I knocked again, louder this time. "Pizza Hut delivery." Silence. Then faintly the sound of shuffling inside, feet dragging slow and uneven across a wooden floor. The doorknob rattled once, then the door creaked open a few inches. From the shadows inside, a voice slipped out, thin, shaky, not quite right. "Leave it on the chair." I blinked. There was indeed a wooden chair sitting just outside the door, slick with dew. Its paint peeled in strips, the seat sagging. It looked like it hadn't been used in years. Sure," I said, setting the box down. "That'll be $21.40. The door opened a little wider. I could see the glow of the yellow light inside, but not much else. No figure, no hand reaching out. "You'll get paid. Just go," the voice whispered. My gut twisted. Something about that voice didn't sit right. The words trembled like an old man's, but layered with something younger. Wrong. I stepped back, keeping my eyes on the dark crack of the door. For a moment, something moved inside, a shadow too big for the frame, hunched, unnatural. My skin crawled. "Keep the change," I muttered, heart thudding as I turned back toward the car. As my headlights swept across the house, I caught one last glimpse. Every window was boarded shut from the inside. Everyone, except the glowing one. Unease. Back at the restaurant, Tina smirked when I told her. "Some drunk messing with you," she said. "Forget about it." I wanted to believe her, but I couldn't shake the feeling. The boarded windows, that trembling voice, the shadow. The next morning, my curiosity got the better of me. I pulled up Brookstone on Google Maps, zooming in on house numbers. There was no 14. The houses started at 20. The lot where 14 should have been? Empty. A patch of weeds and broken fencing. So where the hell had I been last night? The research over the next week, the memory gnawed at me. I found myself driving past Brookstone on my nights off, slowing at that gravel lane. Sometimes it was there, the crooked mailbox waiting. Sometimes it wasn't. One Saturday, I stopped at the library, flipping through old town records. Brookstone Lane had been built in the late 1960s, houses numbered from 20 upward. But deeper in the archives, I found a mention. 14 Brookstone Lane, built 1948, destroyed by fire 1979. Casualties, family of 4. Cause unknown. My throat went dry, the return. Most people would have stopped there, but I couldn't. Something about that voice, that house, had its hooks in me. I needed to know. So one rainy night, a week later, I drove back. The road gleamed with water, wipers smearing the windshield. My headlights cut through mist as I turned onto Brookstone, and there it was. The crooked mailbox, the narrow gravel lane, the house, sagging and yellow-lit. I parked, heart pounding, and stepped out. The air was colder here, sharp enough to sting my lungs. My shoes sank into mud as I crept toward the door. The chair still sat there, empty this time. I knocked. Once, twice. The door creaked open. The voice returned, soft and trembling. "You came back." My breath hitched. "Who are you?" I whispered. The shadow shifted inside, larger than before, blotting out the weak light. "We never left," it said. And then the boards on the windows groaned, not wood against nails, but as if something inside pressed against them, straining to get out. I ran, didn't look back, just bolted for the car, slammed the door, and tore down the road with tires hissing on wet asphalt. The text. That night, lying awake in my apartment, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. "Did you enjoy the pizza?" Epilogue. I quit the job the next day, haven't delivered since, but sometimes, driving home late, I still pass Brookstone. And some nights, when the mist hangs low and the world feels wrong, I see it again. the crooked mailbox, the yellow-lit window. And I swear if I slowed down, if I stopped, the door would already be creaking open, waiting. My name's Alex Harper. I used to deliver pizzas for a Pizza Hut in a town called Crestwood, tucked off the interstate, surrounded by cornfields and a couple of half-dead strip malls. I started working there when I was 19. At first, it was exactly what you'd expect. Easy money, late-night drives with the windows down, free food when the cooks messed up an order. But after one night in particular, I quit. I never delivered again. It's been years since then, but even now I still dream about Oakwood Plaza. The routine. I was used to the Friday night chaos. Orders stacking up on the screen, phones ringing off the hook, customers yelling about extra cheese or missing breadsticks. But once things slowed down, deliveries became almost relaxing. Drive, drop off, nod at the customer, pocket a tip, back to the store. That night it was late, close to 11 p.m., and we were winding down. My manager, Carl, handed me one last ticket. "Lucky you, Alex. Last one of the night." After this, we closed the address on the slip made my stomach tighten. Oakwood Plaza. Everyone in Crestwood knew it. It was one of those half-dead shopping centers that looked like it had been thriving in the 70s but never survived past the 90s. The grocery store was boarded up, the laundromat had been gutted by a fire years back, and the only lights that ever seemed to work were the dim yellow flood lamps buzzing over the cracked parking lot. But people still lived in the apartments built into the back of the plaza, cheap units slapped together behind the stores. I'd delivered there before. Always gave me the creeps. I sighed, grabbed the insulated bag, and headed out. "If I'm not back in 20, send a search party." Carl laughed. "If you're not back in 20, I'm clocking you out and keeping your tips." The drive out. The further I drove from Main Street, the quieter it got. Most neighborhoods were dark. Porch lights clicked off one by one as people settled into bed. The radio fizzled with static before finally dying out, leaving only the hum of the tires on the pavement. By the time I reached the edge of Oakwood Plaza, the sky had clouded over. No stars, no moon, just heavy gray pressing down. The plaza appeared like a skeleton out of the dark. A row of storefronts with busted windows, faded signage, and graffiti that looked older than me. The parking lot stretched wide and empty except for one lonely sedan parked crooked under a flickering lamp. I pulled into a space closer to the apartments and back. The smell hit first: mildew, wet concrete, maybe something rotting deeper in the shadows. My receipt said apartment 2B. No phone number, just the note. Use rear stairwell. Of course. The rear stairwell. The stairwell was a concrete chute bolted onto the back of the plaza, leading down to the basement apartments. A single bulb hung above the entrance, swinging faintly in the breeze. Its light barely reached the bottom of the stairs. I adjusted my cap, pizza bag clutched tight, and descended. Each step echoed too loudly, bouncing off the concrete walls like I was walking into a cave. At the bottom, a metal door waited. Rust streaked down its surface like dried blood. I pushed it open and a damp draft washed over me. The hallway beyond was narrow and dim, lined with cheap beige paint that had peeled into curling strips. The overhead lights flickered, buzzing faintly. Somewhere deep inside, I heard water dripping. I cleared my throat. "Pizza Hut delivery." My voice didn't carry far. It just seemed to sink into the walls. Apartment 2B, the door to 2B was halfway down the hall. Brown wood, number nailed slightly crooked, no welcome mat. I knocked. The sound felt swallowed like the hallway itself was listening. A pause. Then, movement. Soft footsteps inside. The door creaked open 2 inches. Just enough for me to see an eye. A woman's eye, wide and bloodshot. "Yes." The voice was raspy, whispery, like she hadn't spoken in days. "Pizza delivery," I said, forcing cheer. "That'll be $19.75. A hand appeared through the crack. Thin, pale fingers, nails jagged and dirty. She pressed a $20 bill into my palm. "Keep it," she whispered. Thanks." I handed over the pizza. She reached out, not grabbing the box like a normal person but sliding it slowly inside, her arm vanishing into the darkness beyond. That's when I noticed. The apartment behind her was pitch black. No TV glow, no lamp, just empty dark. The smell drifted out too, musty, sour, faintly metallic. Something about it made my stomach turn. I cleared my throat. Have a good night. The door slammed shut. I stood there for a second, heart thumping, then shook it off. Creepy people order pizzas too. Not the first time, won't be the last. I turned to leave. That's when I heard it, the whispers from down the hall. At first I thought it was pipes creaking, but no, the sound was voices. Low, overlapping whispers like a doze, and people speaking at once, too faint to make out words. They came from deeper down, past the flickering light where the hallway turned. I froze, every instinct screaming at me to just keep walking, get back to the stairs. But some stubborn part of me craned my neck, squinting toward the dark. The whispers grew louder, not rushing or frantic, but steady, chant-like. My skin crawled. I took one step backward, then another. My sneakers squeaked on the floor. The whispers stopped. Silence pressed in heavy. I turned and hurried toward the stairwell, but as I reached the door, I glanced back and saw someone at the end of the hall. The figure, they stood half in shadow, half in flickering light. Too far to see details, but I knew they were staring at me. My throat went dry. Slowly they tilted their head. Not curious, more like a predator sizing up prey. The hallway light popped, plunging everything into shadow. I shoved the stairwell door open and bolted up the stairs, two at a time. The parking lot. When I burst into the parking lot, the night air felt like a blessing. I sprinted to my car, fumbling with the keys. The lot was empty, except for the sedan under the lamp. Its headlights clicked on. Blinding white seared across the asphalt. The engine rumbled to life. Panic spiked through me. I dove into my car, locked the doors, and jammed the keys into the ignition. The sedan's tires squealed as it lurched forward. I floored it out of the lot, my hands slick on the wheel, heart slamming in my chest. The following. At first, I thought it was coincidence. Maybe they were just leaving too. But every turn I made, the sedan followed, left onto Pine Street. They followed, right onto River Road. Still there, closer now. Headlights glaring in the mirror. I pushed my old Civic harder, engine whining as we barreled through empty streets. My pulse hammered in my ears. Finally, I cut down a side street, tires screeching, then ducked into an alley behind a shuttered hardware store. I killed the lights and held my breath. Seconds dragged like hours. The sedan slowed at the intersection, paused, then rolled past. I stayed hidden until the night was silent again. The aftermath. By the time I crept home, it was past midnight. I parked 2 blocks away just in case and sat in the dark until my breathing steadied. The next morning, I told Carl I quit. He laughed, thought I was joking. But when he saw my face, pale and hollow, he stopped. What happened, Alex? I didn't tell him. I couldn't. Because the truth was, I didn't know. All I knew was that Oakwood Plaza wasn't empty. Not really. Something lived down there in those dark halls. And they didn't like being disturbed. Epilogue. Sometimes when I'm driving late at night, I still catch myself checking the rearview mirror. Sometimes I see nothing. But once, just once, I swore I saw headlights flick on behind me. No car, just the lights. And for a moment, I swear I heard whispers again. My name is Samantha Clark, though most people just call me Sam. I used to work for Pizza Haven number 312 off Willow Bend Avenue, a sleepy little strip in Crestwood. I was 20 at the time, majoring in criminal justice at Redfield Community College, juggling classes with late-night shifts. It was supposed to be temporary, just money for gas, books, and rent. Delivery was easy, point A to point B. Simple, right? At least that's what I believed until one Thursday night when a delivery to 817 Willow Creek Lane changed everything. I quit the very next day. Routine nights. Most nights, I actually liked delivering. Crestwood wasn't a big town, population maybe 15,000. By my third month, I'd memorized most neighborhoods, every cul-de-sac, every apartment complex that always ordered breadsticks. The rules were simple. Never go inside a customer's house. Trust your instincts. Always keep the delivery bag between you and them. And for the most part, it worked fine. I met tired moms, flirty teenagers, cranky old men in slippers, and everyone in between. People could be rude, sure, but nothing I couldn't handle. But some addresses carried a certain weight. The order. It was a chilly October night, a light mist hanging low across the streets. The dinner rush had died, and I was wiping down the counter when the order came in. 2 large meat lovers, extra sauce, cash payment. The ticket printed with the address, 817 Willow Creek Lane. I frowned, didn't recognize it. Crestwood had been sprouting new developments, rows of identical beige houses with cookie-cutter lawns. Willow Creek Lane sounded like one of those. Still, it was only a 15-minute drive. Easy money. I packed the order, buckled the insulated bag into the passenger seat of my Corolla. Yes, I actually seatbelted pizzas. I wasn't risking a ruined order. And headed out. The drive. The further I got from Main Street, the quieter it became. Porch lights flicked off one by one. No dogs barked. No crickets sang. By the time I turned onto Willow Creek Lane, the silence was suffocating. The houses all looked the same. Beige siding, brown shutters, 2-car garages. But 817 stood out. The porch light flickered weakly. The SUV in the driveway was coated in dust, windshield cloudy like it hadn't moved in weeks. The blinds were drawn tight. I slowed, pulling up to the curb. My stomach knotted. Something about it didn't feel lived in. The door. I grabbed the pizzas, walked the short path, and rang the bell. Ding-dong. The chime echoed unnaturally loud inside, but no footsteps followed. I waited, adjusted the boxes in my arms, rang again. Ding-dong. This time, the porch light flickered twice, then dimmed. The door creaked open a crack, not wide, just enough for me to see a sliver of darkness inside. And a hand. Long, pale fingers gripping the edge of the door. The sleeve was black, thick, like a sweatshirt. Pizza delivery, I said, forcing a smile. 2 meat lovers. That'll be $27.50. A pause, then a voice low and flat. Come inside. The grip, I froze. Company policy was strict, no entering homes ever. Sorry, I said, trying to sound polite but firm. I have to hand it off at the door. Silence. Then the hand twitched and shot out, seizing my wrist. The grip was crushing, ice cold. I almost dropped the pizzas. Hey! I yanked, but he held tight, pulling me an inch closer to the gap. The smell wafted out, stale, sour, metallic. My stomach flipped. Come inside, the voice repeated, louder this time. No! My voice cracked. I twisted, prying at his fingers with my free hand. For a moment, panic strangled me. His grip felt inhuman, like iron. Then suddenly, he let go. I stumbled back, clutching the pizzas like a shield. The door slammed shut. The silence. I stood frozen on the porch, heart hammering, breath fogging the air. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but some stupid part of me whispered, maybe it was just a prank. Some weirdo messing with you. I backed away, step by step, until my sneakers touched the walkway. The house loomed silent. I turned, fast-walked to my car, and slid inside, locking the doors. My hands shook as I fumbled the pizzas onto the seat. For a moment, I just sat there, engine off, staring at the house. The porch light blinked, once, twice, then went dark. The passenger, I jammed the keys into the ignition. The Corolla sputtered, headlights washing across the empty street. I shifted into drive, then froze. In the rearview mirror, someone sat in my back seat, a shadowy figure, still, silent. My breath hitched. I spun around. The seat was empty. Nothing. Just my imagination, right? But when I looked back toward the house, the front door was wide open, and someone stood there watching me. The following. I floored it. Tires squealed against the curb as I tore down the street. My chest ached with every heartbeat. I didn't stop until I hit Main Street, surrounded by streetlights and noise again. By the time I returned to the store, my manager raised an eyebrow. "Everything okay, Sam?" I handed him the untouched pizzas. My hands still shook. "Customer never answered," I lied. The dreams. That night I didn't sleep. Every creak in my apartment made me sit bolt upright. When I finally drifted off, I dreamed of Willow Creek Lane, dreamed of pale hands dragging me into the dark, dreamed of whispers just behind my ear. "Come inside." The aftermath. The next morning I quit. No notice, no explanation, I never delivered again. But sometimes when I drive past new developments, rows of identical beige houses, porches lit with weak bulbs, I swear I see 817, always the same. Curtains drawn, dusty car in the driveway. And once, just once, I saw the door crack open, a pale hand curling around the frame. Epilogue. I still don't know who or what lives at 817 Willow Creek Lane. All I know is that they're waiting, and they want you to come inside. My name's Ryan Cole. I was 22, working part-time at Pizza Hut number 411 on the outskirts of Crestwood. College had finished for the semester, and I needed cash for rent, food, and bills. Pizza delivery seemed perfect. Easy hours, tips on top of a paycheck, music on while I drove around empty streets. Nothing too dangerous, or so I thought. Until the night of the Oak Street delivery. The start of a normal night. It was a Friday, late October. The weather had turned cold. Fog clung to the ground and a weak drizzle coated every street. The dinner rush had passed, leaving only the night crew. My manager, Tony, was stacking boxes behind the counter, yawning. The cook, Jeff, leaned against the soda fountain, half asleep, muttering about some horror movie he'd watched earlier. The order came in at 10:48 p.m. 2 large supreme pizzas, extra olives, cash payment. The address? 421 Oak Street. I froze for a second. Oak Street. Everyone in Crestwood knew Oak Street, or at least thought they did. Most of it was abandoned now. Old houses boarded up, broken streetlights, weeds growing through the cracked pavement. It was the kind of place people only drove through during the day, and even then with caution. I sighed. "All right," I muttered, grabbing the pizzas. Tony gave me a thumbs up. "Last one of the night," he said. "Make it quick, get back safe." Yeah, I said, trying to sound casual. The drive. I left the parking lot, the warm glow of the Pizza Hut sign fading behind me. The roads were slick from the rain, headlights reflecting on puddles. Normally these late drives were relaxing. Music up, little adrenaline rush, quiet streets. Not tonight. By the time I turned onto Oak Street, the drizzle had thickened into a steady rain. Streetlights flickered in patterns that made the road look like a chessboard of shadows. Most of the houses were dark, boarded up, or sagging in ways that made me grip the steering wheel a little tighter. I spotted 421 Oak Street easily. A small 2-story house, front paint peeling, porch sagging. No car in the driveway. The lawn had grown wild, tall weeds scraping against the bottom of the porch steps. Something about the house felt off. Not exactly threatening, but wrong. The porch I parked, grabbed the insulated bag, and approached the front porch. The wood creaked under my boots. The door had a single small window fogged over. I rang the bell. Nothing. I knocked, softly, then harder. Still nothing. Finally, the door opened an inch. A shadow moved behind it, and a pale hand, thin and long-fingered, reached out to take the pizzas. I hesitated. "Cash or card?" I asked. The hand waved me in. "Inside," a voice whispered. Soft, deliberate. I froze. Company policy screamed at me not to enter, but instinct clashed with exhaustion. "No," I said firmly. "I have to leave it here." The hand twitched. The door opened wider. And then I saw it. The inside. The living room was dimly lit by a single lamp, flickering weakly. The furniture was old, coated in dust. Wallpaper peeled in long strips curling from the damp air. No one else was visible, just the hand, still reaching toward me. I set the pizzas on the floor. I have to go now, I said. The hand retracted slowly like it had been testing me. A figure emerged from the shadows. A man, tall, thin, clothes tattered, face pale under the dim light, eyes wide, almost glassy, and he didn't blink. My stomach flipped. "Leave," he said, his voice flat, low, almost monotone. I stepped back. I can't stay. Please." He didn't move, just watched. And then I saw it. Behind him, more shadows shifted. Figures, maybe 5 or 6, emerged from the darkness, each pale, thin, unblinking, moving like puppets. My brain screamed at me to run. The chase, I bolted. Out the door, heart hammering, rain soaking through my jacket. My feet slipped on the porch steps and I nearly dropped the pizzas. Behind me, I heard shuffling, soft at first, then growing louder. I didn't look back, didn't dare. I reached my car, yanked the door open, jumped inside, slammed the door, keys in the ignition, tires screeched as I peeled out of the driveway. At first, the street was empty. No shadows, no footsteps, just the rain hitting the windshield. Then I saw it in the mirror, a figure standing at the edge of the street under a flickering lamp, watching me. Heart racing, I pressed harder on the gas. The threat. Every turn I made, every street I took, I thought I'd lost him. But Oak Street was twisted, and soon I realized something horrible. The figure wasn't running, wasn't walking. It was floating. Somehow keeping pace with my car, still under that same flickering streetlight. I swerved onto a side road, tires skidding on wet pavement. No luck. Still there, watching, waiting. I reached for my phone. No signal. Just the dim glow of the GPS tracing my frantic route. I tried to scream, but my throat was dry. My hands were shaking uncontrollably. The warehouse, I remembered an abandoned warehouse near the edge of town. Maybe I could lose him in there. I drove straight for it, tires crunching gravel. The warehouse was huge, doors long rusted shut, windows broken. I parked behind a stack of crates, turned off the engine, and held my breath. For a long minute, nothing. Then I heard it. A soft scraping sound. Footsteps? Behind the crates? I clutched the steering wheel, frozen. The scraping grew louder. Closer, my body ached to move, to run, but fear rooted me in place. A shadow moved past the cracked windows. A face appeared, pale, thin, unblinking, smiling. The escape. Finally, I remembered a service road on the other side of the warehouse. I tore out of the lot, rain blinding me, headlights bouncing off broken glass. The figure didn't follow. Not immediately. But I knew it had been there. Waiting. Watching. I didn't slow until I reached the brightly lit streets of downtown Crestwood. Only then did my hands stop shaking. The store. By the time I returned to Pizza Hut, Tony was gone. Lights off. I didn't even clock back in. I threw the pizzas in the dumpster out back. That night I didn't sleep. Every sound, the hum of the fridge, the squeak of the radiator, even the wind outside made me jump. Every shadow seemed alive. The next morning I called Tony. I quit. He asked why. I didn't tell him, couldn't. Who would believe me? Some crazy story about a haunted delivery on Oak Street? I still see him sometimes in my dreams. The tall, pale figure, the glassy eyes, the unblinking stare, and I know he's still waiting for someone else to deliver the next pizza. Epilogue. I never worked delivery again. Sometimes when I drive past Oak Street, headlights shining on puddles, I swear I see him. Standing in the distance, waiting, smiling, and I know he remembers me. My name's Emily Torres. I was 21, working late nights at Pizza Hut number 217 in Crestwood, a small town that never seemed to sleep, yet somehow felt deserted after 10 p.m. I'd been delivering for almost a year, and for most of that time it was routine. Warm pizzas, quiet streets, a couple of tips here and there. Nothing too dangerous. Until the night of the Coldwell Drive delivery. That night changed everything. The Friday rush. It was a chilly November evening. The fog was thick, sticking to the ground like cotton wool, and the rain had started thin at first, then heavy enough to blur the streetlights. I was midway through my shift, tired but alert. The Friday dinner rush had been brutal. Orders stacked up, phones ringing nonstop, and customers demanding double cheese or extra breadsticks. Finally, by 11 p.m., the chaos had subsided. My manager, Greg, handed me one last order. "Emily, last one. You take this, you're free to go," he said, handing me the printed ticket. I glanced at the slip. 108 Coldwell Drive. Cash. Leave at door if necessary. Coldwell Drive. I knew the street. Or at least I thought I did. Most of the houses were ordinary, but the far end of the road was notorious. Old, neglected, overgrown lawns, streetlights flickering or completely dead, and a long abandoned subdivision off the main path. Residents often warned each other about walking there at night. I swallowed hard, grabbed the pizzas, and headed out. The drive. The drive started normally enough. My old Corolla hummed along the wet asphalt, windshield wipers swiping rhythmically. Rain-slicked streets reflected the orange glow of streetlights. The further I drove, the quieter it became. No other cars, no people, no sound at all except for the soft patter of rain and the hum of my tires. When I reached Coldwell Drive, the fog had thickened, curling along the road and muffling everything. I could barely see the house numbers until a weak streetlight flickered, revealing 108, a two-story home, paint peeling, porch sagging slightly. The yard was overgrown with weeds and an empty driveway stretched into shadows. I parked near the curb, grabbed the insulated bag, and stepped out. The porch. The porch creaked under my feet. The door had a small window at eye level, fogged and grimy. I knocked. Nothing. I knocked again, louder. My heart began to thump in my chest. Finally, the door opened a crack. A pale, thin hand appeared, fingers curling around the edge. No face, just the hand. "Pizza delivery," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "2 large supreme pizzas," a voice answered, low, flat, and hollow. "Come inside." I froze. Company policy screamed at me not to enter. My gut twisted. I can't," I said. "I need to leave it here." The hand twitched, and then, faster than I expected, it grabbed my wrist. Cold, ice cold. Panic exploded in my chest. The inside, I yanked my wrist free and stumbled backward. My teeth chattered, not from the cold, but from fear. The door opened wider, and a figure stepped out of the shadows. A man, tall, thin, clothes hanging loose, gray and stained, skin pale, almost translucent in the dim light. His eyes, wide, too wide, glassy, unblinking. Behind him, a faint movement, shadows shifting, more figures, 4 or 5 of them, all standing, all pale, all staring. I could feel my pulse in my temples. My legs threatened to give out. I placed the pizzas on the porch, holding them out like a shield. "Please, just take it," I stammered. They didn't reach for the pizza, didn't even blink, just stared. The tallest one stepped forward. His voice, low and flat like gravel, said, "You shouldn't be here." Of the flight. I turned and bolted, sprinting down the porch steps. Rain soaked through my jacket, soaking my hair and clothes. Every muscle burned as I ran to my car. Behind me, footsteps. Soft at first, then scraping, deliberate, slow. Not running, not panicked, just following, watching. I dove into my car, yanked the door shut, locked it, and fumbled for the keys. The figures didn't move. They didn't need to. I could feel them, the cold press of their presence in the air, the weight of their gaze. I started the engine and floored it down the road. Tires squealed on wet asphalt. The figures didn't appear at first. I dared not glance back. The rearview mirror. Then I saw them. In the rearview mirror. At first, just a shadow. Then clearer. Faces. Pale, thin, hollow eyes. Some smiling, some silent. All moving perfectly in sync, floating over the ground rather than walking. I slammed the brakes. Rain sprayed in every direction. The figures halted at the edge of the fog, watching, waiting. I swallowed, heart hammering, then slammed the accelerator and bolted into the nearest lit street. The alley I needed somewhere to hide, somewhere they couldn't follow. I remembered a narrow alley behind an abandoned mini-mart nearby. I skidded into it, rain hissing on asphalt, engine dying as I cut the lights. The alley smelled of mildew and rot. Crates were stacked haphazardly along the walls. I held my breath, listening. Nothing at first, then the faint scrape of movement. Behind me? In front? I couldn't tell. I forced myself to stay silent, muscles trembling. Time stretched, minutes, hours, felt like hours. Finally quiet. Too quiet. The return. By the time I dared to leave, I was soaked, exhausted, shaking. I drove straight back to the Pizza Hut. No one was there. Lights off. Tony gone. I didn't clock back in, just threw the pizzas in the dumpster out back. I called him the next morning. Quit. No explanation, I couldn't. Who would believe me? The haunting. It didn't end that night. For weeks after, I dreamt about Coldwell Drive. Pale faces, hollow eyes, unblinking. The scraping of feet on wet concrete. The cold fingers gripping my wrist. Whispered voices. You shouldn't be here. Sometimes when I drive at night, I swear I see them. Waiting at the end of deserted streets under flickering lamps, silhouettes swaying slightly, watching, always watching. And I know, if I ever took another delivery, they would be there again. Epilogue. I left Crestwood soon after, changed jobs, moved to another city, never delivered pizzas again. But sometimes when I see an empty street at night, wet asphalt reflecting streetlights, I can feel their eyes on me. And I know they remember. Waiting. Always waiting. My name's Daniel Brooks. I was 23, working late-night shifts at Pizza Hut number 508 in Crestwood. I'd been delivering for over a year, thinking I knew all the streets, every neighborhood, every house that regularly ordered. I thought I'd seen it all. I was wrong. The night of Maplewood Drive taught me that some streets should never be visited after dark, and some houses are best left alone. The order. It was a Thursday, cold and misty with fog curling around the streetlights. The dinner rush was over. The store was quiet. Just me, the manager Lisa, and the cook Mark, who was dozing by the prep table. The last order came in at 10:52 p.m. 2 extra-large BBQ chicken pizzas. Cash. Address, 923 Maplewood Drive. I hesitated. Maplewood Drive was on the outskirts of Crestwood. Most of it was fine. Suburban homes, well-lit streets, families tucked in for the night. But the last stretch past the cul-de-sac was different. Old houses, some abandoned, some still lived in, all overgrown with weeds. Streetlights flickered or were out entirely. Rumors said the last few homes were odd. People who never left. People who didn't like visitors. I grabbed the pizzas and headed out. The drive. The drive started uneventfully, radio on, wipers swiping across the windshield, drizzle turning to steady rain. The streets were empty, silent. The further I drove, the more isolated it felt. By the time I turned onto Maplewood Drive, the mist had thickened. The streetlights flickered sporadically, illuminating the cracked asphalt in irregular patches. I reached 923 Maplewood Drive. The house looked abandoned at first glance. Paint peeling, porch sagging, windows dark. The driveway was empty, the lawn overgrown. A single weak light flickered by the front door. My stomach tightened. Something about the place felt wrong. The porch I parked near the curb, grabbed the insulated bag and stepped onto the porch. The wood groaned under my weight. The door had a small window, fogged and cracked. I rang the bell. Nothing. I knocked. Still nothing. Finally, the door creaked open slightly. A hand appeared, thin, pale, curling around the edge, no face visible. Pizza delivery, I said, trying to sound casual. 2 BBQ chicken pizzas. The hand moved aside, motioning me in. A voice followed, low, flat, hollow. Come inside. I froze. My stomach churned. Company rules. Never enter a customer's house. I can't, I said. I have to leave it at the door. The hand twitched. The door opened wider, then I saw him. The figures inside, a man. Tall, thin, clothes hanging loose, skin pale, almost ghostly in the dim light. Eyes wide, glassy, unblinking. Behind him, shadows moved. More figures, at least 5. All standing, all pale, all staring. I stepped back, pizza boxes raised like a shield. "Take it," I stammered. "Just take the pizzas." They didn't move toward the pizzas, didn't blink, didn't speak, just stared. The tallest one advanced slowly, voice flat like gravel grinding. "You shouldn't be here." The chase I bolted, rain soaked through my jacket as I scrambled down the porch steps. My shoes slipped on wet wood. Behind me, soft scraping noises, footsteps, deliberate, synchronized. I dove into my car, slammed the door, locked it. Hands shaking, I started the engine, tires squealing on wet asphalt. For a moment, nothing. Then in the rearview mirror, him and the others, moving in unison, gliding over the ground, following me. I floored it, heart pounding, rain blinding me. The fog. I turned down side streets, trying to lose them. Fog thickened, curling around lampposts and parked cars. I could barely see 20 feet ahead. Every turn I thought I'd lost them. But the mirror showed the shadows floating, watching, unblinking. I tried to scream, but nothing came out. Only the rain and my tires echoing on empty streets. The alleyway, I remembered an alley behind the old gas station, narrow, overgrown, crates stacked haphazardly. I skidded in, tires spraying mud, lights off, engine idling silently. Nothing. I held my breath, scraping noises behind crates, faint shuffling. A shadow moved past the cracked windows of the gas station, tall, thin, unblinking, smiling, waiting. I froze. Time stretched. Every second was a year. Finally, quiet. Too quiet. The return. I drove straight back to Pizza Hut, heart still racing. Store was empty, lights off, manager gone. I threw the pizzas in the dumpster, unwrapped, untouched. I quit the next morning, told them I had other obligations, couldn't explain. Who would believe me? The haunting weeks later, I still dreamt of Maplewood Drive. Pale faces, hollow eyes, unblinking stares, whispered voices, "You shouldn't be here." Sometimes when I drive at night, empty streets with mist curling along lampposts, I swear I see them. Waiting at the end of a deserted street, silhouettes swaying slightly, watching always. Watching epilogue, I left Crestwood shortly after. Never delivered again. Never will. But some nights in the fog I can feel their gaze. And I know they remember. Waiting. Always waiting. My name's Kevin Marshall. I was 24, working the late-night shifts at Pizza Hut number 309 in Crestwood. Delivery was supposed to be simple. Drive, drop off the pizza, get paid, maybe get a tip, and go home. Most nights were boring, predictable, until the night of Hollow Pines Drive. That night changed everything. The last order. It was a Tuesday evening in early December, cold, foggy mist clinging to the roads. The dinner rush was over and the store was quiet. Just me, the night manager Laura, and the cook Derek, who was half asleep, sipping lukewarm coffee. The last order came in at 11:07 p.m. 2 large deluxe pizzas, cash. Address, 412 Hollow Pines Drive. I paused. Hollow Pines Drive. Most of the street was quiet, suburban homes, families tucked in, lights on in windows, warm and normal. But the far end, past the cul-de-sac, was abandoned. Overgrown lawns, boarded-up homes, flickering streetlights, and rumors that the last few houses were off. People who didn't leave. People who were never really seen. I grabbed the pizzas and headed out, heart already racing. The drive. The drive started normally. Music low, wipers swishing, streets slick with rain. The fog thickened the further I drove, wrapping around streetlights and reflecting off puddles. When I reached Hollow Pines Drive, the last stretch of houses emerged from the fog. Broken fences, overgrown weeds, sagging porches. Every house looked like it had been abandoned for years, except for 412. A 2-story house, paint peeling, porch sagging, single dim light flickering near the front door. No car in the driveway. A chill ran down my spine. I parked, grabbed the insulated bag, and walked up the cracked path. The front door. The porch creaked under my boots. I rang the doorbell. Nothing. I knocked. Still nothing. Finally, the door opened a crack. A hand, thin, pale, appeared. No face, just the hand curling around the doorframe. Pizza delivery. I said, trying to sound casual. 2 deluxe pizzas. The hand motioned me in. A voice, low and hollow, followed. Come inside. Company rules screamed at me. Never enter a customer's home. My gut twisted. I can't, I said, voice shaking. I have to leave it at the door. The hand twitched. The door opened wider, then I saw them. The figures inside. A man, tall, thin, clothes hanging loose, gray and stained, skin pale, almost ghostly in the dim light, eyes wide, unblinking, glassy. Behind him, shadows moved. 5 or 6 figures, all standing, all pale, all staring. I stepped back, pizzas raised like a shield. Take it, I stammered. Please, just take the pizzas. They didn't move, didn't blink, didn't speak, just stared. The tallest one advanced, voice flat like gravel grinding. You shouldn't be here. The chase, I bolted, rain soaking my jacket, shoes slipping on the wet porch. Behind me, soft scraping noises, footsteps, deliberate, synchronized. I dove into my car, slammed the door, locked it. Hands shaking, I started the engine, tires squealing. For a moment, silence. Then in the rearview mirror, him and the others. Moving in unison, gliding over the ground, following me. I floored it, heart hammering, rain blinding me. The fog. Every turn I took, I thought I had lost them. But the fog thickened, curling around trees and parked cars. I could barely see 20 feet ahead. The mirror betrayed them, shadows floating, unblinking, always following. I tried to scream. Nothing came out, just rain and the screech of tires on asphalt. The alley. I remembered a narrow alley behind a closed hardware store nearby. Overgrown weeds, crates stacked haphazardly. I skidded in, engine off, heart racing, flashlight off, holding my breath. Nothing, then faint scraping. Footsteps behind crates, shadows passing cracked windows. Pale, unblinking faces smiling, waiting. Time stretched. Seconds became hours. Finally silence. Too much silence. The return. I drove straight back to Pizza Hut, heart pounding, hands trembling, lights off. Laura gone. I didn't clock back in. I threw the pizzas in the dumpster, untouched, unwrapped. Next morning I quit. Told them I had another obligation, couldn't explain. Who would believe me? The haunting weeks later. Hollow Pines Drive haunted my dreams. Pale faces, glassy eyes, unblinking stares, whispered voices, you shouldn't be here. Sometimes driving at night, empty streets with mist curling around lampposts. I swear I see them. Waiting at the end of deserted streets, silhouettes swaying slightly, always watching. Epilogue. I left Crestwood soon after. Never delivered pizzas again. But some nights when the streets are empty, I can feel their gaze. And I know they remember. Waiting. Always waiting.